Good morning, guys. Welcome back from spring break. I hope you guys enjoyed your week and a half, getting to spend time with your family. Hopefully, maybe you guys went on an Easter egg hunt or something like that, got some Easter gifts. Hopefully you had a good time and you guys were able to relax and enjoy yourselves. But now it's back to work. We have a month and a half left of school. This is the last push until the end of the school year. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we'll be able to return at some point before the end of the year. But if not, we'll just keep moving and staying positive and moving forward with this online learning. As a quick reminder, tomorrow we are going to have a Zoom session, and then during the Zoom session we can go ahead and check in to see what you guys been up to. And then Friday will be our first live session where we're going to have our first live teaching class, so we can start learning and doing things in real time. I have been trying to do new things with the Google Slides to get us more engaged, so we're going to try it out. It'll be a testing and learning experience, but looking forward to it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the new content for this week. Alright, good morning, 7th grade. So I know before we went to break I was mentioning that we were going to do like a Renaissance project, but as I was looking over break, I decided not to do the project and we're just going to go into a new section because we do have 3 or 4 more sections to get through, and I know you guys would probably be interested in learning more about these other cultures that we're talking about. So as we move forward, we are going to start talking about the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Incas, so all the South American or the Mesoamerican cultures. So we're going to jump into that today. So today we're going to talk about the geography of these Mesoamerican cultures, and we're going to talk about the Mayans first. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. One thing I forgot to mention is that these cultures are really cool and really dynamic. Something that's really cool about these cultures is that they're still discovering all these new things about them to this day, such as uncovering pyramids in the Aztec and the Mayan areas. And these landmarks are right in the middle of the city, so it's really cool to see. So hopefully you guys will enjoy learning about the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incas. So today we are going to talk about the North American and South American, aka the Mesoamerican cultures. We spent a lot of time in Europe and Asia, so now we're going to get into the Americas. So we're going to talk about these cultures. So building background, the first people to arrive in the Americas were hunters and gatherers. Their ability to find food greatly depended on the geography of this new land. And remember, typically before we start any section, we always talk about the geography, just so we can see how people live, because that's going to decide what people do for a living, how they live, and how it's going to shape their culture. So let's get into this. So as we know, the geography of the Americas, there's 2 continents, and there's North America, which is the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and then South America, which is like Brazil, Chile, Peru, all those countries. And those are the 2 continents, North and South, and they make up this region, what we call the Americas. Okay, so these 2 continents, they have a wide range of landforms and climates. You can just think of it as when you look at California, further down south, you have cooler weather, maybe some deserts, and then as you move closer to the middle of California, there's like farming, there's vines, there's a bunch of open fields, and then when you get up north, it gets a lot colder, more mountains, more trees. So just imagine how the geography spans out across all the Americas. There's a lot of very different things. So in the North continent, which is North America, where we live, has high mountains, desert plateaus, grassy plains, forests, and you can see that North America, where we live, has a bunch of different changing of cultures. Just look from California to New York to Texas to Montana. All these have different areas, and depending on where you go, the geography looks different, and also the climate is different. Okay, so in the northern part of the continent, typically the climate is very cold and icy, and the temperatures get warmer as you move to the south, and this typically is because of the equator. The equator is like in the middle, so the higher north you go, the colder it is. The more you come down south, the colder or the warmer it tends to get. As you move a little bit southern from North America, you enter this little area of North America, and it's called Mesoamerica. And Mesoamerica, this is the area that we are going to be talking about for all these different cultures. But Mesoamerica, this is the region that includes parts of the southern part of Mexico and part of the northern Central American countries. Okay, So that's like this middle part, that part that's shaded brown. That's what we call Mesoamerica. In Mesoamerica, we have like steamy rainforests cover these regions. In some places, there's volcanoes that rise above the forest. Their activity over the years has been surrounding soil, and that's made a bunch of fertile soil in this area. The fertile mountain valleys, the rivers, the warm climate, all this makes Mesoamerica a perfect place for farming. As a matter of fact, some of the first farmers of America all came from Mesoamerica. Still to this day, this area, Mesoamerica, still has some of the most fertile land and perfect climate for farming and for growing different crops. And when you have this is a perfect area for cultures and society or civilizations to start. And that's the civilizations we are going to talk about. So now we're going to talk about South America. So like North America, South America has many different kinds of landforms. We have these huge, tall Andes mountains that run along the western shore of the continent, like in Chile. There's a narrow desert that sits on the edge of fishing waters in the Pacific Ocean. The huge east of the Andes is in that photo right there. We see the Amazon, and the Amazon River or the Amazon region is a huge, hot, wet rainforest. As we know, the Amazon, it supplies almost 75% of the world's rain and oxygen. So the Amazon is something that is very important to us. And just recently, like we talked about how the Amazon was on fire and how it's burning. That's really bad for the Earth's climate, but that's located in South America. So the Amazon River, what it does, it goes and it pretty much drains this region. So the Amazon River is only created because of all the rainflow that comes down. And as we start to talk and see this geography, the Americas, these areas in both North, South, and Mesoamerica, they play a huge part in the development of societies and civilization. And to this day, these regions that we're going to talk about still supply a lot of the world's food, rain, and lumber, and all types of natural resources that the world needs. And it all comes from North America, Mesoamerica, and South America. So we kind of talked about this in 6th grade, so if you remember, but we'll go ahead and review. So no one really is too sure how the first people got to the Americas or when they actually arrived. Most historians, they believe that they came to North America from Asia in about 12,000 BC. And they probably walked across this thing called the land bridge, and they crossed the Bering Strait. Remember, during the Ice Age, everything was frozen, and they were able to cross this land bridge. So maybe they thought this land bridge formed during the ice ages when the ocean levels dropped and exposed land, and people were able to cross the lands that way. Most scientists, they accept this theory of the land bridge and explain how the first people came to Americas. But some scientists today are still challenging that theory. They don't believe that they came over this land bridge. They thought that maybe these people traveled by ocean or by the sea. So regardless of how the first people came, the first people arrived in the Americas, they were hunters and gatherers, like we know. They hunted herds of large animals and wandered the land. They're like nomads. Wherever the herds went, that's where they went. These animals included bison, huge woolly mammoths, like as you see in those pictures. And that was their main source of food and for clothing and everything like that. So not only did these early peoples eat bison and mammals, but they also gathered a lot of different fruits, nuts, wild grains to eat. And these people, they didn't really settle in one place very long because they were always looking for food. That's part of being a nomad or a hunter and gatherer. You follow the herds, you follow where the food is, and you don't really settle anywhere permanently. Eventually, though, some early people began to settle down. And when these people started to settle down, they started to form these little settlements across North and South America where they fished, gathered food, and they started to grow their population. And when they started to grow their population, they started to experiment with other types of things such as farming. And once farming started, that's when civilization and population started to grow. Like I was telling you guys all last year, remember, when you're a hunter and gatherer, you have to always follow the herds, and that's everyone's job. But as soon as you have a settlement and figure out other things, people don't have to hunt and gather anymore, and they can really focus on other things. And when they started to farm, that's when the abundance of food started to happen, and that's when, if there's more food, then population can grow, and that's when civilization started. So that's what we're going to start talking about tomorrow. So today was just like a little overview of the geography and the first people that moved into North, Meso, and South America. So as a quick review, we started to talk about the different regions of the Americas. We have North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico. That's where we live. We live in North America. We talked about Mesoamerica, which is like southern Mexico, and Central America. That's like the Mesoamerica area. And then South America, the whole part like Brazil, Chile, Peru, Colombia, all those places, that's all South America. And we talked about how the climate and the geography changed as you traveled down. So just like, the North Pole's in the north. So if you go to the north, it's a lot more cool, cold, a lot more forest, rainforest. As you start to move down, we get more farming areas, flatlands, grasslands. And then if you keep going down further south, you start to see more mountains. The weather gets warmer. And as you move further down south, the weather gets warmer and the climate changes, and it becomes a perfect area for farming. And this Mesoamerica is what we're going to talk about, the most part of these cultures. We also started to talk about how the first people arrived. There's not too sure how they came. Most people believe they came across the land bridge or the Bering Strait during the Ice Age. Some people believe they came during the sea. But regardless of it, the first people that were in America were hunters and gatherers. And most of the time they hunted and gathered, and they didn't really have strong settlements. They would always travel around because they needed to follow the food. Eventually, though, some of these people are going to settle down, and they're going to create some of the world's greatest and largest civilizations that we'll talk about. And it's going to be pretty interesting because the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incas, what's really cool is that they're still discovering a lot of things about these settlements hundreds of thousands of years later.